It's New Brew Thursday! Woo! We're still at GABF, and we're at Crooked Stave with Chad.
Yeah.
Chad, how you doing, Chad?
I'm doing well.
Chad Yakobson, who has done his master's in Brettanomyces and fermentation.
Yep, master's thesis in pure culture fermentation of Brettanomyces.
All right, and so you took that and obviously opened up a sour brewery, funky brewery, artisanal beer project, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what it is, artisanal beer project. Basically looking to run with the research, make a lot of wild ales and show the diversity that you can have in wild ales. Not everything's got to be so sour, but not everything's got to be so funky either.
A lot of you might remember Chad from last year when we talked to him at GABF, although he was minus the beard and the long hair. So, but now that he's a brewer, you know, you got to have the long hair and the beard. So.
You got to go with the look.
I was working on it.
The Eric Salazar look. So,
oh, yes.
Who?
So you're sharing this facility with Funkworks,
Correct.
and you're actually what they'd consider a gypsy brewer.
I am.
Yes,
I am.
Because even though you're using the facility, I think this is Funkworks' facility. Is that it?
100%, yeah.
You come in and you control your product from start to finish.
Absolutely.
Yes, which is
Funkworks.
what it's all about.
But I imagine when you move on, it's really hard to pack up all these barrels and take them with you.
It's going to be a bit of a trick. I'm still figuring that out.
Right on. So these are actually your barrels. You have your own fermenters here. So I mean, you kind of, it's almost like a co-brewing situation as well.
Symbiotic relationship.
Right, because it's as opposed to like gypsy brewing where you're constantly moving to a new brewery all the time to brew your beers. You're pretty much stationed here, but you're using their facilities and you have your own fermenters and your own barrels and that kind of stuff. So it's almost like your own little brewery.
Yeah, I feel quite grounded here. Definitely feels like our home and everything. We're certainly of the kin of the gypsy brewers, but we haven't been labeled that way, and I think a lot of it's got to do with having our own equipment, having it up here and doing the barrel aging.
Right on. And so you guys you've been getting quite a bit of, you know, play in the last year as well, getting Crooked Stave started, and some of the beers you've released have been pretty exciting. And so what are we going to try today?
Today we're trying a couple of fun little projects, small projects, as well as Wild Brett Orange. There's a beer that we're just about to release.
Wild Brett Orange. So by the label, I thought it was what would Brett do, but then it was an O, so that kind of threw me off a little bit. What would Brett do? But what Brett does is makes beer taste amazing. So let's try this out.
Yeah, well, you're pouring, Chad. When did I first have your beer? Would you say? Ooh, it's a good question, huh? I'm trying to.
This is a good question.
It's been a while,
and I know. So it was a while ago.
One of the things that I've always been promoting your beers, but it's interesting because somebody like Funkworks, they're doing artisanal beers, but they're not using as many wild bugs. They're not doing things like that at all. They're doing saisons and wits, things like that, more that are in a set environment as far as style profile, even saisons, which are quite unique. And so their beers are ready to go kind of right out the door. And I know one of the things that when I'm talking about your beers, a lot of people are saying, well, you know what, it's young, it's this or that, but they have to realize that when you're doing Brettanomyces and you're taking Brettanomyces to a whole new level, which is quite amazing as far as all the Brett strains you're banking and everything like that, that it's going to take a year or two for your beers to fully develop, and people have to understand that. So what you're doing by giving them the opportunity to try these beers young is to let them see what the process is and how it's going from, you know, early on to what it will eventually develop into.
Absolutely.
Let's get a quick cheers.
Okay.
Quick cheers.
Because Steve wants to taste some.
Because I want to drink this beer
Cheers.
while you know. I can't wait for the Brettanomyces in my mouth.
In my mouth.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you can actually like have your customers join in being a part of that evolution as you have your younger beers, and then as you have barrels that you hang on to for longer, you use them in blends, and you have new beers that are coming out. It's cool that you can see how the whole thing matures. You know,
How long has this one been in barrels before it was bottled?
Actually, this one never touched barrels.
Really?
So
Okay.
it's kind of, both of you really touched on it. So one of the big things for me in the beers that I produce is evolution.
Right.
That's what Brettanomyces beers are. When you go back to some of those classicals like an Orval, you think about fresh Orval, first aged Orval. What I'm trying to do is in a way actually retrain the way people think. Now we think Brettanomyces, we think funky, we think sour, we think long aged. So part of this is going off the master's research that I did, the dissertation, and saying, hey look, we can make Brett beers quickly. So this one actually took from brew day to bottle 30 days.
Wow.
At that point, I mean, you know, IPA is somewhere in 21 to 25 days. I'm talking just 1 week, longer than that. And in some of them, that's the idea. Let's look at how quick we can do these.
Right.
Not to make a quick beer, but to see fresh Brett versus aged Brett and to play around with it.
And so if I had a bottle of this and I laid it down for a while, would it would progressively change throughout the course of its cellaring?
Absolutely. They're wild beers. I mean, you talk about Funkworks with their
Right.
saisons and stuff. These just have to be put into a very broad category of what they are. And so with this, it's an experiment. I can't
Right.
even tell you exactly what's going to happen. Using these Brettanomyces yeast, using them for primary fermentation, the characteristics are different. I mean, you taste this.
Oh, yeah.
It's subtle, actually.
As
there's
a
not
wild
much
beer.
tartness.
Has an insane apricot nose once you agitate it. It comes out,
Absolutely.
comes to the forefront.
The beers they're interesting. They're very wine-like in the sense that, I mean, we say on every label, let the beer open up, drink it at a warmer temperature, and swirl it.
Right.
Swirl it to get that nose.
Right.
They're kind of cold, kind of closed off when you first open them, and they open it up. Then the other thing is going on with the brewing techniques with them. So this one, right now, it's got a big bready characteristic. Used a little bit higher oats, a little bit higher wheat. You've got to build body into the beers, but that also adds ageability. So this is meant to be set down for a year and to come back and examine it.
And a lot of times with these kind of beers, right when you open them, they'll have, especially if they're young, they'll have some seemingly off flavors to people, unusual flavors to them. And so by letting it open up, letting it warm up, it kind of like blows it off. It kind of even young, and you'll start to see that the more you agitate it, the more you'll get the true flavors of the Brettanomyces.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just like a wine.
Right.
You know, this is beer. It's unique. It's got a lot more going on for it. But people do need to realize a little bit that, yeah, the characteristics are different when it's younger. When you open it up, give it a second. You don't need to just slam it down.
This is one of the most exciting projects or new breweries that I've come across in the last 5-10 years, in the fact that, you know, I have that huge history of cellaring vintage beers for 25 odd years, and I'm so excited about having all these, getting all young Brett beers from you and watching them go through the cycle and keeping them. And you know, you'll be seeing me 10 years from now, and you go, "What are you still doing with one of those bottles?" And I'll still have one because
Hopefully I still got one as well.
Exactly. So
That's
yeah,
nice.
no, it's going to be really fun watching this
And
progression.
I think there's going to be some hit or misses.
Of course,
I mean,
there always is.
This is brand new. This is a project. There's nothing like these that exist. And so it's going to be that way. Some of them are going to fall. Some of them are going to be awesome. And that's, you know, this is kind of an experiment in the sense of we don't know which ones are going to be because we
Well,
don't
I
know
think
what
this-
makes that.
I think this like defines to me what craft beer is becoming these days. Is that it's no longer about, you know, just producing a great IPA or just producing a great stout or whatever. Those are still very important aspects of craft beer, but it's getting into these like artisanal projects like this where you're like you said, like maybe it'll fall, maybe it won't work out, but you know, it's great to see that transition and how it goes, and you know, learning from that and where we go from here, and amazing, you know, eventually creating amazing wild ales on the American side of things, you know. So
It's interesting because, especially because you had your blog for a long time, the Brettanomyces project, right? Now, do you see yourself like being more of like an educator as far as like Brettanomyces go? Because it, you know, with the blog and also with all these experiments that you're putting out, it seems like you're really trying to open people's minds as far as, you know, what the potential is with, you know, wild beers and with what beer can be in general. I mean, do you find that is a big part of what you're doing, or do you just, you know, want to focus more on, you know, brewing the beer? You
I
know?
would say it's at least 50% of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Big thing is the education. We've been
Well,
doing
no.
it, speaking as much as possible.
yeah, recently I was at the Great Nebraska Beer Festival with you, and you did a Brettanomyces seminar there, which was really cool. And so yeah, I've seen you doing that, even in the limited exposure I get with you being on different parts of the country. But
Absolutely. It's important. These beers are new. There's not a lot of education about them, and it's important, as it is with anything, to get the education out about it.
Right.
Let's talk about Brettanomyces.
And
Let's
you're
talk about what
chronicling
does.
it, so that's great that everybody can access it. It's not just in one set book on Brettanomyces. You're doing a blog, and you know, things like that are just amazing nowadays. They get so many people that follow those things.
Yeah.
so, do you ever just come here and sit on top of your barrels and just think?
Sometimes I actually like to sit right up there on top of that one, sit
Just-
right against
yeah.
the barrel cellar, and just ponder.
I just
Ponder
imagine like
what's
that
what's
guy.
the next one that's going in?
I just imagine
Yeah.
that guy climbing up to reach the man on top of the barrel is like, "What information do you need, my son?" And you're like, "Should I use Brett B or Brett C?" You know.
Both.
Both.
Exactly. Well, you know what's amazing with Brett, and a lot of the wild yeast strains, but Brettanomyces especially, I really love when it interacts with fruits. Yeah, when you lay it down with fruit in a barrel, it just becomes amazing.
Which we're going to
Speaking
try
of
right
which-
now.
Yes.
Good transition.
What do you have? What do you have here?
Wait till you
that's-
said something.
Never acknowledge the segue. What do you? We got some like orange and red, and
We got two
colors
different.
and-
So from this one that we just poured in the Wow Brett Orange, we pulled off a real small amount of it, 2 oak barrels behind us actually worth, and added 2 pounds per gallon peaches to it. So got some peaches from the Western Slope. Took the exact same beer. So you can kind
Now
of
I'm
see
thinking
it.
of that song "Peaches" in my head.
Which one?
That's
Millions of peaches, peaches for me. Yeah.
So you can see where, you know, this one's kind of dropped out and everything. This one's still got the yeast in it.
Yeah,
It's going to have
that's
some
a beautiful
pectins as
thing.
well from the peaches too.
Yeah.
So
Chad, this beer's flat.
it is. Do you know why it's flat?
Because it's straight from the barrel.
Because it's straight from the barrel.
Yeah.
This is
that's
actually an
awesome.
exciting thing for me because, you know, there are stories of people going to different breweries with barrels and, you know, it's like, yeah, it pulled me a sample straight from the barrel. This is my first experience with that, so thank you
Yes.
for doing this. This is
Well,
really
and
exciting.
talk
is
a little bit
beautiful, my
about.
friend.
Yeah, seriously, cheers to this.
Cheers to
Cheers
that.
to this one, guys.
Boom.
Talk just a couple of minutes about how you pull beer from a barrel, because like obviously you don't have like a spigot on there.
well, there's a few different techniques.
How did you do it? Let's say that.
What I did was a way that I've been shown, which basically referred to as the Vinny nail. So
The Vinny Chaluzzo.
as I would take it. So I think, you know, the guys at Avery call it the same thing. Basically drill in, got a little bit and everything, got a little nail in it. It's real nice stainless steel nail, keeps everything pretty sanitary and stuff for what it is worth for barrels. Just able to pull it out, pull a little sample out of it, put it back in. It's nice, keeps oxygen out and stuff, keeps you from going in, sampling it, getting Acetobacter or any other sort of
Right.
bacteria in there that we don't want. We
Right.
got the good
Because I was just going to
bacteria
ask
in
you
there.
about that. I mean, this is when you talk about wild ales. Obviously, sanitation's not left off. You're not going to be like less clean because it's a wild ale. Like, yeah, I can just, you know, spit in this beer. It's
Unless
okay.
you're in the
Stick
Seine
my
River,
hand in
unless you're in the
there.
Seine River Valley of Belgium, yes, you're going to be much more sanitary as
Right.
far as
And then it
controlling.
depends who you're talking
And he's
to.
actually right. What you were alluding to was removing the bung, putting in
Right.
a wine thief, and breaking through the pellicle, and then pulling up. Pellicle is this formation that's on the top of the barrel, and this way is so much nicer because it doesn't affect.
Well, and
that.
bacteria only falls down. So
Right.
if you're pulling the bung out, then you're leaving it open for bacteria to fall in and
Absolutely.
oxygen, too.
Yeah,
That's
and
a
oxygen.
Positive pressure out of that when you pull it out.
Right.
Doesn't go back in. So
Right.
that's the idea behind that and everything. And just to be able to pull a real small sample instead of leaving it open, oxidizing
Right.
it more.
Yeah. Well, this is delicious.
The peach
quite
on this
frankly.
is just insane.
You can tell it's pretty fresh.
Yeah,
It's at, like,
exactly.
it's at 1 month, so you got a
What kind of
huge,
peaches are you
huge
using?
incredibly
character.
bright fruit character. Yeah.
There's 2 different peaches in it. I'm gonna space. Both from the Western Slope in Colorado. So,
Okay.
you know, like all the small breweries and stuff, I think it's quite a trend. You know, try and use local, and that's a big thing that we're doing as well. You want to support agriculture. You want to support the
local,
other farmers
sustainable.
around you.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Now, one of the barrels has the words Buddha Nova written on it. Am I allowed to ask about that, or?
It was from a kind of collaboration project. A bunch of breweries came together to
was
brew,
it 12 or 17? I can't remember how many. There were a
at
bunch.
least. There were at least that many of
amazing.
us.
Wow.
So yeah, big beer and stuff that got brewed, and my contribution kind of to it, besides going down and drinking a bunch of beer while other people brewed, while I brewed, was
That's how I homebrew.
collaborations.
I drink beer and watch other people do it.
It's called collaborations. We'd had these freshly emptied shipped out to us. I said, hey guys, I'll bring them down for that, and a bunch of our Bretts as well.
Okay.
So there's actually 10 Brett strains that went into that beer. I think we supplied like 5 or 6 of them.
I didn't even know there were that many Brett strains in
I know where
general.
bottles are.
Wow.
Of Buddha Nova.
Yeah.
There are some are too.
Then we shall be there tonight.
In our cases.
So, well, let's
I was
let's
gonna
dive
say-
into this red one because this is.
Yeah, what do we have here?
So this is another one of fun little projects, basically. We had our first edition, which was the Pure Guava Petite Sour. And this was a beer, again, one that we came out with. The idea was to kind of show what could be done with wild ales. So spontaneously soured beer. It's really neat, kind of similar to a Goza, similar to a Berliner Weiss, but at the same time blended back in with a farmhouse wit, kind of all over the place, using blending, using spontaneous souring, 100% primary fermented Brett, but a very young beer. We came out with it very quickly to show, you know, what couldn't be done, different processes. We took a little bit of that, added blackberries to it, and put it into 3 barrels. So this is now what's been aging since then.
Now,
Wow.
you don't answer, and this isn't to stump you guys, but do you notice anything different when you nose this beer right now?
Different from what?
Well,
I get more of a wine characteristic than I did in the last one.
okay, check this out. You smelt this beer right when he first pulled it from.
No, I was not allowed to, actually.
Okay, Matt, you
I was
smelled
yelled
this
at
beer.
when I tried to. John was like, no, that's got to be a surprise. I was like,
That's
oh,
true. Never mind.
sorry.
You're out of this conversation. You smelt it, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Now
He
you
who
smelt
smelt it dealt
now
it.
you smelt it again, right?
Okay.
Can you see how all those phenols came off? All those, slightly off flavors, the cheesiness.
It's definitely opened it up.
It's
And-
it's so much.
And it's
Yeah, see, I
it's-
heard cheesy being described, and I was like, I want to smell the cheese. And then no one would let me. So.
No, well, it's interesting because like it's almost
John right
balanced
now.
out a little bit more
Oh.
because right when you first smelled it, it had a lot of that like salty kind of like brine sort of character, and now more of that cheesiness is coming up, more of the fruit character.
Actually, now
I'm
the fruit
starting to get
character is
into.
what's really shining
For
through.
sure.
You're already getting those blackberries.
Well, that's why, like, I mean, given the fact that this is not carbonated, like, I feel like I'm drinking a glass of wine, and but with
So good.
more.
Oh yeah.
The Brett characteristics that are coming out on it are a little bit more intense for me, so I like this a lot.
This beer, it's interesting that Bill mentions that, and it's the truth. This beer's been a little bit of a fight, and this is kind of part of the education, is a lot of people, when we release the beer, they'll drink it cold, they'll drink it the second they get the pour
Right.
or off the taps, and it's been hard to explain, like, it's not so much that this beer is young, because it is. This beer is meant to be made young and to be drank young, but the thing is that there are certain characteristics that are going to be in these beers.
Right.
Give it 30 seconds, give it 2 minutes, swirl it around, let it open up, and you'll have one of the most unique things you've ever had.
This is fabulous.
When you guys are drinking wild ales out there, treat it like a wine. Maybe you guys don't drink wine, but one of the things wine drinkers do is they let the wine open up, and that's exactly what you need to do with these kind of beers. Let them open up, let them warm up a little bit, let them open up, the aroma comes up, wafts up, and it's fabulous. So I highly recommend that.
Let it
do
be a
it,
bit
you'll
more
be-
cerebral experience.
Yeah.
If you do it, you'll be rewarded.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what kind of distribution are you getting right now?
Right now, it's all self-distribution through Colorado.
Okay.
So Fort Collins, Denver, we're just about to tap into Colorado Springs.
So if I give you a gas card, can you drive some out to California?
I would love to. I can visit
We've
some guys.
actually,
please.
we were actually talking before the shoot, and it may be coming out to California in the very near future, guys.
That's the
And
power
we
of
can all
Dr. Bill.
thank Bill for that.
Power
Not
of
necessarily, no. He's already on it, but
No, thank
I'm
the
going to do
people in
whatever
San
I can do
Diego.
to help him. So
Right
let's
on.
get this beer out there.
Thank the
Well,
people.
Chad, thank you very much for taking the time, pulling some of these out of the barrels. This was amazing. It's always great to see you, and you always have a place to stay when you come out to visit. So,
definitely.
as always, stay safe and drink beer. Cheers. Cheers.